Her son brought a science fair project. The billionaire CEO watched his 18-year-old fix production live. The gymnasium was packed with students, parents, and judges. Science fair projects line tables in neat rows. In the back corner, an 18-year-old boy named Micah stood beside a machine that looked deceptively simple. When the judge asked him to demonstrate, he powered it up. Lines of code scrolled across a laptop screen. The machine hummed to life. And across the room, a billionaire CEO froze mid-step. Damian Cross stared at the boy. At the machine. At the woman standing protectively beside him. His chest tightened with recognition he didn't understand yet. "How did you learn that algorithm?" Damian asked, moving closer, his voice unsteady. Micah shrugged with the casual confidence of genius. "I've been fixing Mom's design flaws since I was 10. Damian turned to the woman. To Zara. The woman he'd loved and lost 18 years ago. "Zara, whose son is this?" Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "Yours." The word hung in the air like a bomb about to detonate. Yours. 18 years of absence. 18 years of not knowing. And now standing in front of him was a son. A brilliant son who just solved the problem that was destroying his billion-dollar company. A son he never knew existed. A son who had his eyes. His jawline. His mind. Everything crashed into Damian at once. The truth. The loss. The weight of 18 years. And the realization that the boy fixing his empire was the child he'd never known. Before we continue with this incredible story, if you're finding this as emotional and gripping as we are, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We bring you real stories about second chances, redemption, and the power of truth. Don't miss out on more stories like this. Now, let's go back to where it all began. 18 years earlier, before the billions, before the empire, before everything fell apart and came together, there was a love story. The kind built in university labs and whispered over soldering irons. Damian Cross was 22, a mechanical engineering student with ambition that burned bright enough to light up entire cities. He was brilliant. Driven. Obsessed with building machines that could outperform human limitations. His professors called him exceptional. His classmates called him intense. And he was fine with both labels. He met Zara Miles in advanced robotics. She sat in the front row, taking notes with meticulous precision, asking questions that challenged professors, building prototypes that made grown engineers jealous. She was quiet but fierce. Soft-spoken but steel-cored. And when Damian saw her work for the first time, actually saw the elegance of her design thinking, he was captivated. Not by her looks, though she was beautiful. But by her mind. By the way she saw problems and solutions simultaneously. By the brilliance that matched his own. Their first real conversation happened in the lab at 2 in the morning. Both working on separate projects. Both too absorbed to notice the time. Damian's circuit board was malfunctioning. He'd been troubleshooting for hours with no progress. Zara glanced over from her workstation. "You've got a voltage issue," she said simply. "Third relay from the left. It's pulling too much current." Damian looked at his board, then at her. "How did you know that?" "The smell," Zara replied. "Overheating copper has a distinct scent. And the pattern of your failure suggests power distribution problems." Damian tested her theory. She was right. Perfectly right. "Thank you. I've been staring at this for 3 hours." "Sometimes you need fresh eyes," Zara said with a slight smile. "What are you building anyway?" "Automated assembly arm," Damian explained. "Trying to program precision movement without human calibration." "What about you?" "Adaptive learning system for industrial robots," Zara said. "Teaching machines to adjust to manufacturing variances in real time." Damian's eyes lit up. That's incredible. Can I see? She showed him. Her prototype was elegant. Sophisticated. Years ahead of current industry standards. Damian was genuinely impressed. This is doctoral level work. You're an undergrad. So are you, Zara pointed out. And your assembly arm is impressive too. They talked until dawn. About robotics and manufacturing and the future of automation. About dreams of building systems that would revolutionize production. About changing the world through engineering excellence. By the time the sun rose, they'd sketched out collaborative designs and exchanged numbers and established something neither expected. A connection. The kind that goes deeper than attraction. The kind built on mutual respect and shared passion. They started working together regularly. Late nights in the lab turned into early morning breakfast runs. Technical discussions turned into personal conversations. Collaborative projects turned into something more. Damian had never felt this way about anyone. Zara understood him in ways no one else did. She challenged his thinking. Improved his designs. Made him better. And somewhere between circuit boards and code, he fell completely in love. You're brilliant, he told her one night as they tested a joint project. You know that? You've mentioned it, Zara replied with a smile. You're not bad yourself. I'm serious, Damian insisted. You see things I miss. Think in ways I don't. We're better together than apart. Is this about the project or about us? Zara asked, meeting his eyes. Both, Damian admitted. I think we could build something incredible together. Not just machines. But a future. A real future. Zara looked at him carefully. What does that future look like? I don't know exactly, Damian said honestly. But I know it includes you. Includes us. Includes building things that matter. I've never met anyone like you, Zara. I don't want to lose this. Then don't, she said simply, and kissed him. They were inseparable after that. For 2 years, they were the power couple of the engineering department. Working together. Building together. Dreaming together. They graduated top of their class. Both received job offers from prestigious companies. Both had opportunities that would launch successful careers. And they planned to navigate it all together. Side by side. Partners in every sense. But ambition is a jealous companion. Damian received an offer from Helios Manufacturing. Not just any offer. A fast-track program. Junior engineer to senior engineer in 2 years. Potential for leadership roles. Access to cutting-edge projects. The kind of opportunity that launched legendary careers. He was thrilled. Until he realized what it required. Total commitment. 60-hour work weeks minimum. Relocation to company headquarters 3 hours away. No distractions. No competing priorities. Just complete devotion to the company. It's incredible, Damian told Zara, showing her the offer letter. This is everything I've worked toward. It's great, Zara agreed, but something in her voice was cautious. What about us? What do you mean? Damian asked. It's 3 hours away, Zara pointed out. And it requires 60+ hour weeks. When would we see each other? How would this work? We'll figure it out, Damian said. Long distance for a while. You could look for positions near Helios. We'd make it work. I have a job offer here, Zara reminded him. A good one. Doing exactly the kind of research I want to do. I don't want to give that up to follow you somewhere I might not even find comparable work. So what are you saying? Damian asked, tension creeping into his voice. I'm saying we need to think about this, Zara said carefully. About what we both want. About what we're willing to sacrifice. I'm not asking you to sacrifice anything, Damian insisted. I'm just asking you to support me taking an incredible opportunity. And I'm asking if that opportunity leaves room for us, Zara countered. For a relationship that requires time and attention and presence. They fought about it for weeks. Not screaming matches. But tense conversations that went in circles. Damian insisting they'd make it work. Zara pointing out the practical realities. Neither willing to compromise. Neither able to see the other's perspective clearly. The distance between them grew even before Damian left. And when he finally relocated, when he threw himself into the demanding culture of Helios, the relationship fractured completely. He missed calls because of meetings. Cancelled visits because of deadlines. Forgot anniversaries because of projects. And slowly, inevitably, Zara pulled away. She stopped calling as much. Stopped making plans. Stopped believing that Damian would choose her over his career. When she finally ended things officially, Damian was too exhausted and overwhelmed to fight for her. He told himself it was for the best. That he needed to focus. That love was a distraction he couldn't afford. That he'd find someone else eventually when life was less demanding. What he didn't know was that Zara was pregnant. Had been for 6 weeks when they broke up. She discovered it 2 weeks after their relationship ended. Sat in her bathroom staring at the positive test and tried to process. Pregnant. With Damian's child. The man who'd just chosen his career over their relationship. The man who was already drowning in work. The man who'd made it clear nothing could come between him and his ambition. She thought about telling him. Picked up the phone a dozen times. Started emails she never sent. Drove halfway to Helios headquarters once before turning around. But every time she imagined the conversation, she saw the same outcome. Damian would feel trapped. Would resent the timing. Would see the baby as an obstacle to everything he'd worked for. And she refused to trap someone who didn't want to be there. Refused to force parenthood on someone who'd already chosen something else. So she made the hardest decision of her life. She would have this baby. Raise this child alone. Build a life that didn't depend on Damian Cross or his success or his involvement. She moved to a different city. Started her new job. Prepared for single motherhood. And when her son was born on a cold December morning, tiny and perfect and crying with impressive lung capacity, she held him and whispered. "Hi baby boy. I'm your mama. And I'm going to give you everything. You won't have a father. But you'll have love. So much love. I promise." She named him Micah. Strong. Meaningful. Beautiful. Micah Miles. Not Cross. Her son wouldn't carry the name of a man who'd never know he existed. He'd carry her name. Her strength. Her determination. And she'd make sure that was enough. The first years were exhausting. Beautiful but overwhelming. Micah was an unusual baby from the start. Intensely focused. Observant in ways that seemed almost unnatural. He'd stare at mobiles spinning above his crib with laser concentration, as if trying to understand the mechanics. He'd study her face while nursing like he was memorizing features. By 6 months, he was manipulating objects with unusual precision. By 1 year, he was taking apart toys to see how they worked. He's very advanced, his pediatrician noted at his 18-month checkup. His fine motor skills and problem-solving abilities are remarkable. Is that normal? Zara asked. It's exceptional, the doctor clarified. He's gifted. Genuinely gifted. You'll want to nurture that. Nurturing genius on a single income was challenging. Zara worked full-time as a robotics engineer. Good salary. Stable benefits. But not wealth. Not the kind of resources that gave gifted children every advantage. She did what she could. Library books about science and engineering. Educational toys from discount stores. Museum visits on free days. Building projects using recycled materials. And Micah absorbed everything like a sponge designed specifically for knowledge. By age 4, he was putting together puzzles designed for 8-year-olds. By 5, he was reading instruction manuals for appliances. By 6, he was taking apart the microwave to understand how it heated food. Zara came home one day to find him sitting cross-legged on the kitchen floor, microwave components spread around him in organized rows. "Micah, baby, what are you doing?" she asked, trying not to panic. "Learning," he said simply. The magnetron converts electricity into microwaves. The waveguide directs them into the cooking chamber. The turntable ensures even heating distribution. It's elegant engineering. "You're 6 years old," Zara pointed out. "How do you even know those words?" "I read," Micah replied, gesturing to a repair manual he'd found online. "Can we put it back together now? I want to see if I can make it more efficient." Zara helped him reassemble the microwave. It worked perfectly. And she realized her son wasn't just smart. He was extraordinary. The kind of mind that appears once in a generation. She enrolled him in advanced programs. Applied for scholarships to private schools for gifted children. Did everything possible to nurture abilities she knew were exceptional. And Micah thrived. Not socially. He struggled to connect with peers who didn't share his interests. But intellectually, he soared. By age 8, he was building remote-controlled machines from garbage. By 10, he was programming basic AI systems. By 12, he was reading graduate-level engineering texts. His teachers were amazed and sometimes intimidated. "Your son operates at a level I've never seen in a child," one told Zara. "With proper resources, there's no limit to what he could achieve." But proper resources required money they didn't have. Zara did her best. Worked overtime when possible. Saved every spare dollar for Micah's education. They lived modestly. Small apartment. Second-hand everything. No luxuries. But plenty of love. And Micah never complained. Never seemed to notice they had less than others. He was too absorbed in learning. Too focused on building. Too brilliant to care about material things. The question about his father came when Micah was 12. They were working on a project together, building a robotic arm from salvaged parts. Micah was focused on the servo motors when he asked casually, "Mom, who was my dad?" Zara's hands stilled. She'd known this conversation would come eventually. Had prepared answers. But hearing the actual question made her throat tight. "Why do you ask?" "Kids at school talk about their fathers," Micah said, not looking up from his work. "I realized I don't know anything about mine. Not his name. Not what he looked like. Not if he's even alive." "He's alive," Zara said quietly. "And he was brilliant. Like you. He had a mind for engineering that I've never seen matched. Except in you." "Why isn't he here?" Micah asked, finally meeting her eyes. Zara chose her words carefully. "Because when I knew him, he had big dreams. Important work he wanted to do. Work that didn't leave room for family. And I decided it was better to raise you surrounded by people who chose to be here than to force someone who wasn't ready." "Did you love him?" Micah wondered. "Very much," Zara admitted. "For a long time. He was the smartest person I'd ever met. Until you. Do you still love him?" Micah pressed. "I love who he was," Zara said honestly. "I don't know who he is now. But I don't need to. Because I have you. And you're more than enough." Micah processed this in his methodical way. "Does he know about me?" "No," Zara said. "He doesn't. Should he?" Micah asked. Zara thought about it. Maybe someday. When you're ready. When you decide whether you want to know him. But that's your choice, Micah. Not mine. And not his. Yours. Okay, Micah said, returning to his work. I'm not ready yet. But maybe someday. The conversation ended there. Micah never brought it up again. Never seemed angry or resentful. He just accepted the reality and moved forward. That was his nature. Problem. Information. Solution. Move on. Zara was grateful he didn't push harder. Didn't demand details she wasn't ready to share. But she also knew eventually he'd want more answers. And she'd have to figure out what to say. Meanwhile, across the city, Damian Cross had become everything he'd dreamed. He'd risen through Helios Manufacturing with unprecedented speed. Junior engineer to senior engineer in 18 months. Senior engineer to department head in 3 years. Department head to VP of operations in 5 years. And at 35 years old, he was named CEO. The youngest CEO in company history. The media called him a visionary. A genius. The future of American manufacturing. He was on magazine covers. Gave keynote speeches. Built Helios into a $10 billion empire. But success came at a cost. Damian worked constantly. 16 hours per day. 7 days per week. No hobbies. No relationships that lasted more than a few months. No life outside the company. He told himself it was worth it. That he was building something meaningful. That the sacrifice mattered. But late at night, alone in his penthouse, he felt the emptiness. The loneliness. The sense that something fundamental was missing. He thought about Zara sometimes. Wondered what had happened to her. Whether she'd achieved her dreams. Whether she was happy. He'd tried to find her once, about 5 years after they broke up. But she'd moved. Changed jobs. Made herself unreachable. He took it as a sign she'd moved on completely. That their relationship was ancient history she didn't want reopened. So he buried the memories and focused on work. Always work. The only thing that never disappointed him. By the time he was 40, Damian had everything most people dreamed of. Wealth. Power. Influence. A company that dominated its industry. But he also had stress that was literally killing him. High blood pressure. Irregular heartbeat. Stress-induced insomnia. His doctor warned him repeatedly. You need to slow down. Find balance. This pace is unsustainable. But Damian didn't know how to slow down. Didn't know who he was without the company. So he pushed harder. Worked longer. Built higher. Until the thing he'd sacrificed everything for began to crumble. It started with a defect. A synchronization issue in Helios's new automated production line. The system would run smoothly for hours, then suddenly desynchronize, causing cascading failures across the entire manufacturing process. They'd stop production. Reset everything. Run diagnostics. Find nothing wrong. Resume production. And hours later, the same failure would occur. It was costing $14 million per day in lost production. Threatening contracts worth billions. Destroying confidence in Helios's flagship product. Damian threw his entire engineering team at the problem. The best minds in the industry. Consultants charging obscene hourly rates. Nobody could solve it. They'd patch one issue only to create another. The system was too complex. Too interconnected. Every fix caused unforeseen problems elsewhere. Investors were panicking. The board was questioning Damian's leadership. Competitors were circling like sharks smelling blood. And Damian, for the first time in his career, was out of answers. "We need to scrap the system and start over," one advisor suggested. "That's 18 months of development," Damian replied. "We don't have 18 months. "Then we need a miracle," the advisor said bluntly. Damian stared at the production floor from his office window. Machines that should be running sat silent. Workers sent home. Money hemorrhaging. His empire crumbling because of a problem nobody could solve. He'd built his entire life on being the smartest person in the room. On solving impossible problems. And now the one problem that mattered was destroying everything. The board called an emergency meeting. Damian sat at the head of the conference table, looking at faces that barely concealed their doubt. "Mr. Cross, we need solutions," the chairman said. "This defect is unsustainable. We're losing contracts. Losing confidence. We need to know you have a plan." "We're working around the clock," Damian said. "My best engineers are on this." "Your best engineers have failed for 6 months, another board member pointed out. "Maybe it's time to acknowledge this is beyond current capabilities." "Are you suggesting we abandon the project?" Damian asked, tension in his voice. "We're suggesting you need help," the chairman replied. "Outside perspective. Fresh thinking. Pride won't solve this problem." "I'm not operating from pride," Damian insisted. "I'm operating from responsibility. This is my company. My project. My problem to solve. And if you can't solve it," someone challenged. The question hung in the air. If he couldn't solve it, he'd lose everything. The company. The reputation. The empire he'd sacrificed his entire life to build. Damian had no answer. Because for the first time, he genuinely didn't know if he could fix this. Meanwhile, in a different part of the city, 18-year-old Micah Miles was preparing for the regional science fair. His project sat on his desk, deceptively simple in appearance. A small automated system with learning capabilities. Clean design. Elegant programming. Advanced beyond anything most university students could create. "This is really good, baby," Zara said, examining his work. She understood it better than most. Could see the sophistication hidden in apparent simplicity. "Thanks," Micah replied. "Do you think it's competitive?" "I think it's revolutionary," Zara said honestly. "This is doctoral-level work, Micah. Most people won't even understand what they're looking at." "That's what worries me," Micah admitted. "If the judges don't understand it, they won't appreciate it." "Then you explain it in ways they can understand," Zara suggested. "Break it down. Show them the applications. Make it accessible without dumbing it down." Micah nodded, processing. "I can do that." "I know you can," Zara said, squeezing his shoulder. "You're brilliant. Just be yourself and let your work speak for itself." The day before the science fair, Zara received an email from the event coordinator. "We're excited to inform you that several industry sponsors will be attending this year's fair, including executives from major tech companies. This is an excellent networking opportunity for participants." Zara's stomach dropped when she saw the list of attending companies. Helios Manufacturing. Her hands trembled as she read. Helios. Damian's company. The empire he'd chosen over her. Over them. The place that had consumed his entire life. She told herself it wouldn't be him personally. CEOs didn't attend high school science fairs. They sent representatives. Public relations people. Low-level executives looking for good press. But her gut twisted with anxiety anyway. What if he did come? What if he saw Micah? What if he looked at their son and saw himself? 18 years of carefully maintained separation could shatter in seconds. "Mom, you okay?" Micah asked, noticing her distress. "Fine," Zara lied. Just thinking about tomorrow. You ready? Ready, Micah confirmed. Mom, who's going to be there? Anyone important? Just the usual, Zara said vaguely. Judges, sponsors, other students. Nothing to worry about. But she was worried. Terrified actually. All night she debated pulling Micah out. Claiming illness. Some family emergency. Anything to avoid the possibility of Damian seeing their son. But Micah was so excited. So proud of his work. She couldn't take that from him because of her own fears. So she decided they'd go. Stay toward the back. Keep a low profile. Get through the day without incident. Simple plan. Except nothing about the next day would be simple. The regional science fair was held at the convention center. Massive space filled with rows of tables, each displaying a project. Hundreds of students. Thousands of visitors. The energy was electric. Competitive. Micah set up his station with meticulous precision. Display board explaining his methodology. The machine itself, compact and impressive. Laptop for demonstrations. Everything organized perfectly. Good luck, baby, Zara said, kissing his forehead. You've got this. Thanks Mom, Micah replied, then paused. Hey Mom. Whatever happens today, thank you. For everything. For raising me. For supporting me. For making all this possible. Tears filled Zara's eyes. You did this yourself, Micah. I just gave you space to be brilliant. You gave me everything, he corrected. I know it wasn't easy. I know you sacrificed a lot. I just want you to know I see it. And I'm grateful. Zara hugged him tight. I love you so much. You know that? I know, Micah said. I love you too. The fair opened at 9. Judges began circulating. Micah's project immediately attracted attention. The sophistication was obvious to anyone with technical knowledge. One judge, a university professor, spent 20 minutes examining the system. This is remarkable, he said. The learning algorithm alone is graduate-level work. Where did you learn this? Self-taught mostly, Micah explained. My mom's an engineer. She taught me the foundations. The rest I figured out through experimentation. Your mother must be brilliant, the judge observed. She is, Micah agreed, glancing at Zara who stood nearby, trying to be supportive without hovering. Around 11, a commotion started near the entrance. Reporters. Cameras. Security personnel. Someone important had arrived. Zara's blood ran cold. She moved closer to Micah's station, protective instincts kicking in. Through the crowd, she saw him. Damian Cross. Older than she remembered. More polished. Expensive suit. Confident posture. But still recognizably him. Same intense eyes. Same focused expression. Same presence that commanded attention. He was flanked by assistants and security. Moving through the fair with purpose. Stopping at select projects. Clearly invited as a VIP sponsor. Zara's first instinct was to grab Micah and leave. Just walk out before Damian got close. But they were locked in. Micah was a finalist. They couldn't leave without causing a scene. So she stayed frozen, watching Damian move closer, praying he wouldn't look their direction. But of course he did. His path led directly past Micah's station. And when his eyes landed on Zara, he stopped completely. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. 18 years collapsed into seconds. All the history. All the love. All the pain. Written across both their faces. Zara? Damian said, disbelief clear in his voice. "Hello Damian," Zara replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Professional. It's Miss Miles now." "Miss Miles," he repeated, confusion flickering. "What are you doing here?" "My son is a finalist," Zara said, gesturing to Micah. Damian's gaze shifted to the boy. And Zara watched recognition dawn slowly. Not understanding yet, but seeing something familiar. Micah had Damian's features. His dark hair. His sharp jawline. His intense gray eyes. The resemblance was striking if you knew what to look for. And Damian was starting to look. "Your son," Damian said slowly. "How old is he?" 18, Zara replied, her voice carefully controlled. The math was immediate. 18 years ago they'd been together. Damian's expression shifted through several emotions. Confusion. Realization. Denial. Hope. Fear. He opened his mouth to speak but a judge interrupted. "Mr. Cross, would you like to see this young man's project? It's quite extraordinary." "Yes," Damian said, not taking his eyes off Micah. "I would." Micah stepped forward, professional despite the obvious tension. "Hello Mr. Cross. I'm Micah Miles. This is my automated mechanical learning system. It's designed for real-time adaptive factory production." Damian blinked, focusing on the project. His eyes widened almost immediately. "This is a learning algorithm for manufacturing automation." "Yes sir," Micah confirmed. "May I see the code?" Damian asked, his voice tight. Micah pulled up his laptop, showing lines of elegant programming. Damian leaned closer, studying with intense focus. His hand started shaking slightly. Zara recognized that reaction. He'd seen something significant. Something that connected to his work. After several minutes, Damian straightened. "Where did you learn this?" he asked, his voice barely controlled. "Self-taught," Micah replied. "And my mom helped with some concepts. She's a robotics engineer." "Of course she is," Damian murmured, glancing at Zara. Then back to Micah. "Really looking now?" Seeing not just the project but the boy. The resemblance. The implications. "Can you demonstrate the system?" "Sure," Micah agreed. He powered up the machine. It hummed to life. On the laptop screen, real-time data showed the system analyzing input, adjusting parameters, optimizing performance. It was smooth. Efficient. Impressive. The small crowd that had gathered murmured appreciation. Then one of the judges, trying to be clever, posed a challenge. "This is very impressive," the judge said. "But can it handle complex real-world problems? For instance, there's been news about Helios Manufacturing struggling with a synchronization defect in their automated production line. Could your system diagnose something like that?" Zara's heart stopped. "No. Not this. Not now." Micah looked intrigued rather than intimidated. "Do you have specifics on the defect?" The judge pulled out his phone, reading from a news article. "Intermittent desynchronization causing cascading failures. Happens seemingly at random. They've been trying to fix it for 6 months." "Interesting," Micah said, already thinking. "Can I have 5 minutes?" "Take your time," the judge said, clearly not expecting much. Micah sat at his laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard. He pulled up technical specifications for Helios's production systems, publicly available information. Studied the architecture. Started writing code. The crowd watched in fascination as this 18-year-old worked with complete confidence. After exactly 5 minutes, Micah looked up. "I think I know what the problem is," he announced. "It's not a synchronization issue. It's a cascading feedback loop in the learning algorithm. The system is overcorrecting, which creates instability in connected processes. The randomness isn't random. It's predictable if you map the correction patterns. Dead silence. Damian's face had gone white. Show me. Micah ran a simulation using his own system. Programmed it to replicate Helios's production architecture based on available specs. Then triggered the cascading feedback scenario. Sure enough, the system destabilized. Then Micah implemented a correction. A few lines of elegant code that smoothed the learning curve and prevented overcorrection. Ran the simulation again. Perfect synchronization. No failures. Problem solved. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reporters pushed closer. Cameras started rolling. And Damian Cross stood frozen, staring at the screen where a high school student had just solved the problem destroying his company. A problem his best engineers couldn't crack in 6 months. Solved in 5 minutes by a teenager who looked exactly like him. How did you know that? Damian asked, his voice shaking. Micah shrugged. Pattern recognition. Once you understand the underlying logic, the solution is obvious. It's not obvious, Damian said. I've had teams working on this for months. Experts. People with decades of experience. None of them saw what you just saw. Maybe they were looking too close, Micah suggested. Sometimes you need distance to see patterns. Damian turned to Zara. His expression was complex. Awe. Confusion. Dawning realization. Zara, whose son is this? The question hung in the air. Every eye turned to Zara. Cameras focused. Reporters leaned in. The entire gymnasium seemed to hold its breath. Zara looked at Micah, at Damian, at the life she built crumbling around her. And she made a choice. After 18 years of silence, the truth needed to be spoken. Yours, she whispered. The word echoed. Yours. Damian stumbled back like he'd been physically struck. His security team moved to steady him, but he waved them off. His eyes were locked on Micah. On his son. The son he never knew existed. The son who had his mind. His features. His abilities. 18 years. Gone. Missed. Lost. Mine, Damian repeated, his voice breaking. I have a son. You have a son, Zara confirmed. For 18 years, Damian continued, the reality crashing into him. 18 years and I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? I tried, Zara said, tears streaming down her face now. Right after we broke up. Right after I found out I was pregnant. I tried to reach you. But you'd made it very clear that nothing could come between you and your career. That you had no room for distractions. For relationships. For anything that wasn't Helios. So I decided not to trap you with a responsibility you didn't want. You should have told me anyway, Damian said desperately. Would you have come? Zara challenged. 18 years ago, when you were just starting your rise, when the company was everything, would you have chosen us? Damian opened his mouth to say yes. To insist he would have. But the truth was written on his face. The honest answer. He didn't know. Probably not. Back then, the company had been everything. He wouldn't have been ready. Wouldn't have been the father Micah needed. The realization broke something in him. If this story is touching your heart, we need you to do something. Comment below and tell us what you would have done in Zara's position. Would you have tried harder to tell him? Or would you have raised your child alone like she did? Your perspective matters to us. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Let's continue. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Micah, who'd been silent through this entire exchange, finally spoke. You don't need to apologize to me. You didn't know. You couldn't choose to be here because you didn't know I existed. But now you do. Damian looked at his son. Really looked. Saw intelligence that rivaled his own. Saw confidence built over 18 years without him. Saw a young man who'd grown up fine without a father because he had an exceptional mother. You're brilliant, Damian said. Absolutely brilliant. I learned from the best, Micah replied, glancing at Zara. Mom taught me everything important. She raised you alone, Damian said, the guilt evident. She raised me with love, Micah corrected. We didn't have much money. But we had everything that mattered. I'm not angry at you for not being there. I'm just curious about who you are now. The crowd around them had grown. Everyone watching this family drama unfold in real time. Reporters filming everything. Social media exploding with the revelation. Billionaire CEO has secret son. Genius teenager solves company's biggest problem. The narrative practically wrote itself. Damian's assistant appeared at his elbow, whispering urgently about damage control and PR strategy. But Damian ignored him completely. Micah, he said, and the name felt foreign on his tongue. His son's name. What you just did, solving that problem, that could save my company. Save thousands of jobs. Billions of dollars. Would you be willing to help? To consult on the actual system? Damian, Zara started to protest, but Micah held up a hand. I'll help, Micah said. But only if Mom can be there. She's the engineer who taught me. She deserves to be part of this. Damian looked at Zara. Of course. Absolutely. Zara should be there. And one more condition, Micah added. This isn't about money. I'm not doing this for payment or recognition. I'm doing it because fixing broken things is what I do. But I want it clear that I'm helping you as a consultant, not as your son trying to prove something. Understood, Damian agreed. When can you start? How about now? Micah suggested. The problem is actively costing you millions per day, right? Why wait? Now, Damian repeated, slightly stunned by the boldness. You want to go to Helios headquarters now? Unless you have a better time, Micah said with a slight smile. His father's confidence showing through. Damian made a decision that would have been unthinkable an hour ago. Let's go. My car is outside. Zara, Micah, come with me. Damian, this is crazy, Zara protested. Micah hasn't even finished the science fair. Mom, it's okay, Micah said. This is more important. The fair was about showing what I can do. Now I get to actually do it. That's better than any trophy. The science fair coordinators tried to object, but Damian's team handled it. Arranged for Micah to be marked present. Ensured he'd still be eligible for awards. Money and influence smoothing everything. Within 20 minutes, they were in Damian's town car, heading to Helios headquarters. Zara sat beside Micah in the back seat, protective. Damian sat across from them, unable to stop staring at his son. You really figured out the problem in 5 minutes, he asked. The pattern was clear once I saw the architecture, Micah explained. Your system is brilliant, by the way. The core design is exceptional. The issue is just in how the learning algorithm handles edge cases. It's overcorrecting for variables that don't need correction, which creates instability. My team has been saying it's a hardware issue, Damian said. It's not, Micah confirmed. It's purely algorithmic. The hardware is fine. You just need to smooth the learning curve and implement better threshold detection. How do you know all this? Damian asked, genuine wonder in his voice. Mom's been teaching me since I was little, Micah said. And I read a lot. Like, a lot. I've probably consumed every technical paper on adaptive manufacturing systems ever published. He has, Zara confirmed quietly. He's been obsessed with this kind of problem solving since he was 8. He has my obsession, Damian observed. I was the same way. Couldn't stop thinking about systems and solutions. He has both of our obsessions, Zara corrected. And thankfully, neither of our worst qualities. They arrived at Helios headquarters. The building was massive. Glass and steel. Modern. Impressive. Micah looked up at it with interest but not intimidation. They took a private elevator to the executive floor. Damian's team had assembled in the main conference room. Senior engineers. Department heads. The people who'd been fighting this problem for months. They looked exhausted and skeptical when Damian walked in with a teenager. Everyone, this is Micah Miles, Damian announced. He's an engineering consultant. And he's identified the root cause of our synchronization issue. Murmurs of disbelief. One senior engineer, a woman named Patricia who'd been with Helios for 20 years, spoke up. With all due respect, we've had the best minds in the industry working on this. What makes you think a kid solved it? Because I watched him do it, Damian said firmly. At a science fair. In 5 minutes. Now let him show you. They set Micah up at a workstation with access to the production system. Zara stood behind him, supportive but letting him lead. The engineers gathered around, skeptical but curious. Micah pulled up the code architecture. Started analyzing in real time. His fingers flew across the keyboard with practiced precision. Here, he said after a few minutes, pointing at a section of code. This is where the feedback loop starts. The learning algorithm is trying to optimize for too many variables simultaneously. When it encounters edge cases, it overcorrects, which creates instability downstream. You need to implement threshold detection that prevents overcorrection. We tried that, Patricia objected. It didn't work. You tried it in the wrong part of the algorithm, Micah countered politely. You were implementing it after the correction phase. It needs to be implemented before, in the analysis phase. That way it prevents the overcorrection from happening at all rather than trying to compensate after the fact. Patricia leaned closer, studying what Micah was showing. Her expression changed. That's actually brilliant. Why didn't we see that? Because you were focused on fixing the symptom instead of preventing the cause, Micah explained. It's an easy mistake. The symptom is obvious. The cause is subtle. Can you implement the fix? Damian asked. I can write the code, Micah said. But it should be tested thoroughly before deployment. You don't want to introduce new problems. We have a test environment, Patricia said, her skepticism turning to respect. We can simulate production there. For the next 3 hours, Micah worked with Helios's engineering team. Writing code. Testing. Refining. Zara contributed occasionally, her experience adding valuable perspective. The Helios engineers went from skeptical to impressed to almost reverent. This teenager was operating at a level most of them had never seen. And he was patient. Explaining his thinking. Teaching rather than just fixing. Making them better in the process. By 6 p.m., they were ready for a live test. The actual production system. Thousands of components. Billions of dollars in infrastructure. All dependent on code written by an 18-year-old. The tension in the room was palpable. Damian stood beside Micah, watching monitors that showed production metrics. You sure about this? Damian asked quietly. No, Micah admitted. But I'm confident. There's a difference. What's the difference? Damian wondered. Being sure means you think you can't fail, Micah explained. Being confident means you know you might fail but you'll figure it out if you do. That's wise, Damian observed. Who taught you that? Mom, Micah said, glancing at Zara. She taught me failure is part of learning. They initiated the test. The production system powered up. Machines started moving. The automated processes began their complex dance. Everyone watched the synchronization metrics. Watched for the failure they'd seen hundreds of times before. Minutes passed. The system stayed stable. More minutes. Still stable. An hour. 2 hours. Perfect synchronization. No failures. No cascading errors. The fix worked. The conference room erupted in cheers. Engineers hugging. Patricia had tears in her eyes. Damian stood frozen, watching perfect production for the first time in 6 months. Then he turned to Micah and pulled him into a hug. "You saved my company," he said, his voice thick. "You saved everything." "You built something worth saving," Micah replied, returning the hug awkwardly. "I just fixed a bug." "A bug no one else could fix," Damian said. "A bug that was destroying everything I worked for." "You're extraordinary, Micah. Do you know that?" "I'm just good at patterns," Micah said modestly. "You're good at everything," Damian insisted. Then, pulling back to look at him. "I missed 18 years of your life. 18 years of watching you become this incredible person. I can't get that back. But I'd like to be part of your future. If you'll let me." Micah looked at his mother. Zara's eyes were filled with tears. She nodded slightly. Permission. Or maybe just acceptance of the inevitable. "I'd like that," Micah said. "But slowly. We don't really know each other. We need time." "All the time you need," Damian agreed. "I'm not going anywhere." This is the power of second chances, and if this story is resonating with you, we need your help to reach more people with this message. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Share this video with someone who needs to believe that it's never too late to make things right. Now let's see how this family rebuilt what was broken. The news of Micah's fix spread fast. By that evening, every major outlet was covering the story. Brilliant teenager saves billion-dollar company. Billionaire CEO's secret son solves impossible problem. The narrative was irresistible. Damian's PR team wanted to control it, spin it, manage the message. But Damian made a different choice. He called a press conference for the next morning. Unscripted. Honest. Just him telling the truth. "Good morning," he said to the assembled reporters. "I'm here to address the stories circulating about recent events at Helios." Yes, an 18-year-old consultant named Micah Miles solved a critical production issue that had eluded our engineering team for months. Yes, he is my biological son. And yes, I only learned of his existence yesterday. I want to be very clear about something. Micah's mother, Zara Miles, is a woman of incredible integrity. 18 years ago, we were in a relationship. We broke up. I was consumed by my career and made it clear nothing could come between me and this company. Zara became pregnant after our breakup and tried to contact me. I never received those messages. She made the difficult decision to raise Micah alone rather than force involvement from someone who wasn't ready. She did an extraordinary job. Micah is brilliant, kind, and grounded. Everything good about him comes from her. I missed 18 years because I made my career more important than relationships. That was my failure. Not hers. Not Micah's. Mine. But I'm grateful for this second chance. Grateful to know my son. And grateful that despite everything, they're willing to let me try to be part of their lives. That's all I have to say. No questions. He walked off the podium. The reporters shouted questions anyway, but Damian ignored them. He'd said what needed saying. Told the truth plainly. Let the chips fall where they would. The public reaction was mixed. Some people praised his honesty. Others criticized him for abandoning his son. Some attacked Zara for keeping Micah secret. But mostly, people were fascinated by the story. The genius son. The redemptive father. The second chance at family. Over the next weeks, Damian and Micah met regularly. Coffee shops at first. Neutral territory. Awkward conversations about interests and history. Learning each other slowly. Damian told Micah about his work, his regrets, the emptiness of success without meaning. Micah told Damian about growing up, about his projects, about his mother's sacrifices. Neither tried to force instant connection. They just built foundation slowly. "Do you resent me?" Damian asked during one meeting. "For not being there. How can I resent something that wasn't your choice?" Micah replied. "You didn't know. You couldn't choose to be there because you didn't know I existed. But I chose the career that made your mother feel like she couldn't tell me," Damian pointed out. "That's on me." "Maybe," Micah acknowledged. "But resenting you won't change anything. It won't give me back 18 years. It'll just make me bitter. I'd rather focus on now. On building something going forward." "You're wise beyond your years," Damian observed. "I had a good teacher," Micah said. "Mom taught me that holding on to anger just hurts you. That forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself." "Your mother is remarkable," Damian said quietly. "She is," Micah agreed. "And if you want to be part of my life, you need to respect that. She's the most important person to me. Nothing changes that." "Understood," Damian said. "I would never try to diminish what she's done. Or her importance to you." Gradually, the relationship deepened. Damian started coming to Micah's robotics club meetings. They worked on projects together in Damian's private lab. Micah visited Helios and consulted on other engineering problems. The board, initially skeptical, became supporters when they saw how effectively Micah could identify issues and solutions. Some even joked about succession planning, though Micah made clear he had his own plans that didn't involve taking over Helios. The hardest part was Zara. She and Damian were cordial but distant. Too much history. Too much hurt. They could co-parent Micah. Could be professional. But the love that had once connected them felt impossibly far away. Until one evening, Damian asked to speak with her alone. They met at a coffee shop. The same one where they'd studied together in college, though neither mentioned that. "Thank you," Damian said simply. "For raising him. For doing everything alone. For making him into someone I'm honored to know." "I didn't do it for thanks," Zara replied. "I did it because he's my son and I love him." "I know," Damian said. "But I want you to know I see it. I see how hard it must have been. How much you sacrificed. How much you gave. And I'm grateful. To you. For everything." Zara's eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't supposed to be this hard. We were supposed to build things together. Change the world together. Instead I did it alone while you built an empire." "I know," Damian said, his own voice breaking. "I chose wrong. I chose the company over you. Over us. Over everything that actually mattered. And I paid for it with 18 years of emptiness. Of wondering what was missing. Of achieving everything and feeling nothing. Was it worth it?" Zara asked. "The empire? The billions? Everything you gained?" "No," Damian said without hesitation. "None of it was worth losing you. Losing the chance to know Micah. Losing the family we could have built. I was an idiot. A blind, ambitious idiot who thought success was measured in dollars and market share. And I'm sorry, Zara. I'm so sorry for hurting you. For leaving you alone. For missing everything. I needed to hear that, Zara admitted quietly. For 18 years I wondered if you even cared. If I mattered to you at all. Or if I was just a distraction you were relieved to be rid of. You were never a distraction, Damian insisted. You were everything. The best thing that ever happened to me. And I threw it away because I was too stupid to realize what I had. But I realize it now. I've spent 18 years trying to fill a void that nothing could fill. Because the void was you. Was the family I could have had. They sat in silence for a long moment. Years of hurt and regret hanging between them. Finally, Zara spoke. I don't know if I can forgive you. Not fully. The hurt is too deep. But I'm willing to try. For Micah. And maybe for us. To see if there's anything left worth saving. That's more than I deserve, Damian said. But I'll take it. And I'll spend however long it takes proving I'm different now. That I've learned. That I won't make the same mistakes. Don't prove it with words, Zara said. Prove it with actions. With showing up. With being present. With choosing us even when the company demands otherwise. I will, Damian promised. I swear I will. Over the following months, Damian kept that promise. He restructured his schedule to prioritize time with Micah and Zara. Attended Micah's school events. Took him to college visits. Helped with applications. And slowly, carefully, he rebuilt trust with Zara. They started having dinner together as a family. Started talking about old memories without pain. Started imagining a future that included all three of them. Micah watched his parents reconnect with quiet satisfaction. You two should just admit you still love each other, he said one evening after dinner. It's complicated, Zara replied. It's not that complicated, Micah countered. You look at each other the way you look at perfectly elegant code. Like you're seeing something beautiful and functional and exactly right. That's love. When did you get so wise about relationships? Damian asked with a smile. I observe patterns, Micah said with a shrug. Human patterns are just more complex than mechanical ones. But the principles are the same. You two fit together. You always did. You just forgot for a while. Out of the mouths of geniuses, Zara murmured. He's not wrong, Damian admitted. I never stopped loving you, Zara. I just stopped being worthy of you. But I'd like to try again. To be the man I should have been 18 years ago. If you'll let me. Zara looked at him. At the man who'd broken her heart. At the father who'd missed 18 years. At the person who'd finally learned what mattered. Slowly, she said. We try this slowly. No grand gestures. No rushing. Just seeing if we can build something real. Slowly, Damian agreed. I can do slowly. And they did. Over the next year, Damian and Zara dated properly. Like they should have the first time. They went to museums and movies. Had long dinners discussing engineering and philosophy. Rebuilt the connection that had first brought them together. It wasn't the same as before. They were different people now. Older. Wiser. Scarred by experience. But somehow that made it better. More real. More sustainable. When Damian proposed, he did it simply. No grand gesture. Just the two of them in Zara's apartment. The place where she'd raised Micah alone. Where she'd built a life through determination and love. I know I don't deserve you, he said, on one knee. I know I failed you once. But I'm asking for another chance. Not because I need you. But because I choose you. Over everything. Over the company and the wealth and everything else. You and Micah are what matter. You're what I should have chosen 18 years ago. So I'm choosing you now. Will you marry me? Zara looked at him with tears streaming down her face. Yes. Yes, you idiot. Yes. They married quietly 6 months later. Small ceremony. Close friends and family only. Micah stood beside his father as best man, proudly wearing a suit and a smile that said he'd orchestrated this entire reunion. Because in a way, he had. His science fair project hadn't just saved a company. It had brought a family together. Had forced 3 people to confront the past and build a future. At the reception, Damian gave a toast. About 20 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I chose career over love. Ambition over family. Success over what actually mattered. I lost the best woman I'd ever known. And I missed the chance to raise the most brilliant son I could have imagined. But through some miracle, through Micah's genius and Zara's grace, I've been given a second chance. A chance to be the father I should have been. The partner I should have been. The man I always should have been. I don't deserve this. But I'm grateful for it. And I promise I won't waste it. To Zara, the love of my life. To Micah, the son who brought us back together. And to second chances. May we all be brave enough to take them. The room applauded. Micah wiped away tears. Zara held Damian's hand. And in that moment, the family that should have been was finally whole. Not perfect. Never perfect. But real. Built on truth and forgiveness and the belief that even the worst mistakes could become the foundation for something beautiful. Micah went on to study engineering at MIT. Graduated top of his class. Started his own company focused on adaptive manufacturing systems. Became successful in his own right, not because of his father's name, but because of the brilliance his mother had nurtured and the work ethic both parents modeled. Damian remained CEO of Helios but restructured his priorities. He worked hard but not obsessively. Left the office at reasonable hours. Never missed important family moments. Proved through consistent action that he'd learned what mattered. And Zara returned to her own engineering work, eventually becoming Chief Innovation Officer at Helios, where her ideas transformed the company's approach to sustainable manufacturing. Years later, when Micah's own daughter was born, Damian held his granddaughter with tears in his eyes. I missed this with you, he told Micah. Missed everything. The first moments. The tiny hands. The wonder of new life. Thank you for letting me be here for this. You're here now, Micah said simply. That's what matters. You showed up. You kept showing up. That's what being a father is. I learned that from watching your mother, Damian admitted. She showed me what real strength looks like. What real love looks like. What it means to choose someone every single day. She did, Micah agreed. And now you show me. Both of you. You show me that mistakes don't define you. That it's never too late to make better choices. That family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up even when it's hard. Damian looked at his son holding his daughter. 3 generations. Connected by blood and love and second chances. I wasted so many years, he said quietly. Building an empire that meant nothing. Chasing success that brought no joy. I could have had this all along. You have it now, Micah pointed out. And maybe you needed those years to become someone who could appreciate it. Someone who could choose it. You weren't ready before. But you're ready now. When did you get so wise? Damian asked with a smile. I had 18 years alone with the wisest woman I know, Micah replied. Mom taught me everything important. Including that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength. And that people can change if they're willing to do the work. She taught you well, Damian said. She taught me well too. Just took me longer to learn. That evening, the whole family gathered at Damian and Zara's home. 3 generations around one table. Micah with his wife and new daughter. Damian and Zara, married now for years, comfortable in the life they'd rebuilt. They shared a meal. Told stories. Laughed. Connected. It looked like any normal family gathering. But it was extraordinary. Because it almost hadn't happened. Because one science fair project had changed everything. Remember that day at the fair? Zara asked, smiling at the memory. When Micah solved your company's biggest problem in 5 minutes and revealed you had a son in the same breath. How could I forget? Damian replied. My entire life changed in that moment. Everything I thought mattered suddenly didn't. And everything I'd missed suddenly became crystal clear. I was terrified, Zara admitted. Terrified you'd see him. Terrified you wouldn't. Terrified of what would happen either way. I'd spent 18 years protecting him from the pain of your absence. And suddenly there you were. I'm glad you were there, Micah said. Both of you. I'm glad it happened that way. Public. Undeniable. With witnesses and cameras. Because it forced honesty. Forced all of us to face truth we've been avoiding. You did an incredible job, Damian said, reaching for her hand. You did everything right. Everything I should have been there to help with. Everything I missed. Stop dwelling on what you missed, Zara said gently. Focus on what you have now. On being present for your granddaughter. On being the father to Micah you couldn't be before. On being the husband you've become. The past is past. We've all made peace with it. Have we? Damian asked. Have you really forgiven me? Zara thought about it. I've forgiven the young man who made scared choices. I've forgiven the ambitious kid who didn't understand what he was giving up. I've even forgiven the CEO who let work consume everything. Because those people led to the man you are now. The man who learned. Who changed. Who chose differently when given a second chance. That's who I married. Not who you were. Who you became. I don't deserve you, Damian said, emotion thick in his voice. Probably not, Zara agreed with a slight smile. But you've earned me. Through years of showing up. Of being present. Of choosing us every single day. That's what matters. Not deserving. Earning. Micah watched his parents with satisfaction. This is what he'd wanted. What he'd hoped for since that day at the science fair. Not just a father. But a family. Whole and healed and real. You two are disgustingly sweet, he said, breaking the emotional moment. My daughter is going to grow up thinking all relationships are dysfunctional. Would that be so bad? Zara asked. No, Micah admitted. It would be pretty great actually. She'll have what I didn't. Two parents who love each other. Who are present. Who model what healthy partnership looks like. And grandparents who are equally invested. She's lucky. We're the lucky ones, Damian said. I get to be here for her whole life. Every moment. Every milestone. Everything I missed with you. It's a gift I don't take lightly. The evening wound down eventually. Micah and his family headed home. Damian and Zara cleaned up together, moving through their home with comfortable synchronization. When everything was done, they stood on their balcony looking out at the city lights. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? Damian asked. If I'd made better choices years ago. Sometimes, Zara admitted. But then I think about who Micah became. Strong and independent because he had to be. Brilliant but humble because he grew up without privilege. Compassionate because he watched his mother struggle and succeed. Would he be that person if you'd been there from the start? Maybe. Maybe not. So you're saying my absence was good? Damian asked, slightly stung. I'm saying everything that happened made us who we are, Zara clarified. The pain. The struggle. The separation. The reunion. All of it shaped us. And I wouldn't trade who we are now for an easier path that led somewhere else. That's profound, Damian observed. I've had a lot of time to think about it, Zara said. 18 years of raising a son alone. Of wondering what if. Of building a life from nothing. I could be bitter. Could resent you forever. Could punish you for missing so much. But what would that accomplish? It wouldn't change the past. It would just poison the present. How did you get so wise? Damian wondered. Single parenthood is either a crash course in wisdom or a fast track to bitterness, Zara replied. I chose wisdom. For Micah's sake. And for mine. I love you, Damian said simply. More than I knew how to love anyone years ago. More than I thought I was capable of loving. You taught me what love actually means. Showing up. Being present. Choosing someone even when it's hard. I love you too, Zara replied. The you that you've become. The man who learned from his mistakes. Who did the work to change. Who chose differently when given another chance. That's the man I married. That's the man I want to grow old with. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two people who'd lost each other and found their way back. Not the same people they'd been. Better people. Stronger people. People who'd earned their happiness through hard lessons and honest growth. Inside, Damian's phone buzzed with work emails. Urgent messages from the board. Problems that needed attention. Years ago, he would have gone inside immediately. Would have spent the rest of the evening dealing with company issues. But not tonight. Tonight the emails could wait. The problems could wait. The company could wait. Because he'd learned the most important lesson of his life. Success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. And family, real family, was worth more than any empire. Come back to bed, Zara said, pulling him away from the view. The world can wait. Yes it can, Damian agreed, following her inside. For the first time in my life, I'm letting it wait. And he did. Not just that night. But every night after. He showed up for family dinners and grandparent duties and quiet evenings at home. He attended every event in his granddaughter's life. He rebuilt the relationship with Micah into something strong and real. He loved Zara with consistency and presence and the kind of devotion he should have shown decades earlier. He proved through actions, not words, that he'd changed. That he'd learned. That he'd finally understood what actually mattered. The story spread beyond their family. Became an inspiration to others. The billionaire who chose family over empire. The son who forgave the father who was never there. The mother who showed grace while maintaining boundaries. Media wanted to cover it. Turn it into a movie. Write books about it. But they kept their story private. Kept the details to themselves. Because it wasn't about publicity or inspiration or proving anything to the world. It was about healing. About second chances. About building something real from broken pieces. Micah's company grew successful. Not as large as Helios. But impactful. Innovative. Changing manufacturing through adaptive systems and ethical practices. He hired talented engineers who reminded him of his younger self. Gave them opportunities. Mentored them. Paid forward the grace he'd been shown. And when people asked about his success, about his brilliance, about how he'd achieved so much so young, he always gave the same answer. I had an exceptional mother who taught me everything important. And a father who taught me that it's never too late to make better choices. Between them, I learned what I needed to know. Work hard. Stay humble. Forgive when possible. And show up for the people who matter. Simple wisdom. Hard-earned. Lived rather than just spoken. Years later, when Micah's daughter started showing similar brilliance, similar obsession with understanding how things worked, Damian watched with joy and nostalgia. "She's just like you were," he told Micah. "Brilliant. Curious. Unstoppable." "She's lucky," Micah replied. "She has what I didn't. 2 present parents. Involved grandparents. A support system. She won't have to figure everything out alone." "Because you and your wife are incredible parents," Damian said. "You learn from the best." "I learned from Mom," Micah agreed. "And from watching you work to become better. Both taught me important things. Mom showed me unconditional love. You showed me that change is possible." "I'm still learning," Damian admitted. "Still working to be worthy of this family. Some days I slip. Some days I get too focused on work. Some days I forget what matters. And then you remember," Micah pointed out. "That's what makes you different now. Before, you never remembered. Never looked up from work long enough to see what you were missing. Now you catch yourself. Correct. Choose differently. That's growth. Thanks to all of you," Damian said. "To Zara for giving me another chance. To you for forgiving what I missed. To your family for letting me be involved. I don't take any of it for granted." "Good," Micah said simply. "Don't." And he didn't. Until his last day, Damian remained present. Chose family. Showed up. He never stopped being grateful for the second chance that 18-year-old boy had given him at a science fair. Never stopped working to be worthy of Zara's forgiveness. Never stopped being the father he should have been from the beginning. And when he died, old and surrounded by family, his last words were simple. "Thank you. For letting me be here. For including me. For teaching me what love actually means. I'm sorry I missed so much. But I'm grateful for everything I got." "You were here when it mattered," Micah replied, holding his father's hand. "That's what counts." At the funeral, Micah delivered the eulogy. Spoke honestly about his father's failures and his redemption. About the man who chose wrong and spent decades choosing right. About second chances and forgiveness and the power of showing up. People cried. Not sad tears entirely. But moved tears. Grateful tears. Because the story was bigger than one family. It was about human potential for change. About the possibility of redemption. About the truth that it's never too late to become who you should have been. After the service, Zara stood at the grave alone. Micah had given her space. She looked at the headstone. Damian Cross. Beloved husband, father, grandfather. The titles he'd earned through presence, not just biology. She thought about their journey. The young love. The painful separation. The 18 years apart. The reunion. The rebuilding. The life they'd created from wreckage. You did good, she whispered to the grave. Not perfect. But good. You showed up. You tried. You loved us the best way you knew how. That's all anyone can ask. She placed flowers on the grave. White roses. His favorite. Then she walked away, back to the family waiting. Back to the son they'd raised in different ways. Back to the granddaughter who'd never know a world where her grandfather wasn't present. Back to the life they'd built from impossible circumstances. It wasn't the story they'd planned. But it was the story they'd lived. And it was enough. More than enough. It was beautiful in its imperfection. Real in its complexity. True in its core. A testament to the power of second chances. To the possibility of forgiveness. To the truth that showing up, even late, matters more than being perfect from the start. The billionaire CEO who almost lost everything learned what actually mattered. The woman who raised a genius alone found partnership again. The son who never had a father gained one through his own brilliance. And together, they proved that families aren't about perfection. They're about presence. About choosing each other. About showing up even when it's hard. About learning from mistakes. About growing together. About building something real from broken pieces. That was their story. Not a fairy tale. Not perfect. But real. And in its reality, it was more powerful than any fiction could be. Because it proved what we all need to believe. That it's never too late. That change is possible. That forgiveness heals. That showing up matters. That love, real love, the kind built on choice rather than convenience, can transform everything. And that sometimes, the mistakes we make become the foundation for the most beautiful things we build. If we're brave enough to face them. Humble enough to learn from them. And determined enough to choose differently when given another chance.